Hi guys, and welcome to Siska Stitches. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to draft the basic trouser pattern, and this pattern is going to be cut together with a zipper fly. It is very easy and very detailed, so stay tuned guys. At the end of this tutorial, I'll be testing the pattern, so you guys should watch this tutorial, understand it, take notes where necessary. If you are not subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button, click the bell so you get updates when we post new videos. And now we begin. We will need the following measurements: our waist to hip, our waist circumference, hip circumference, our crotch length, thigh circumference for one leg, knee circumference for one leg, ankle circumference for one leg, as well as our trouser length, which for me is from my waist to my ankle. So guys, these are the tools I'm going to be working with. I have my rulers both straight and curved, my tape rule, my tracing wheel, my marker pens, and my scissors. So I'm going to set this aside, and of course I have my pattern paper. So right at the top here we have our horizontal line, and right at this side we have our vertical line running through the length of this pattern. So if you want to add a waistband to your trouser pattern, you need to subtract it before you go ahead and do anything. So for this tutorial, my waistband is 2 inches, so I'll be subtracting that through any length of measurement I'm going to be marking along the vertical axis. So I need to take note of that. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is marking my waist to hip, and my waist to hip is 9 inches, but I'm subtracting 2 inches of band, so that will give me 7 inches. So I'll come to this side, mark that 7 inches, so I can end up with a very straight point. So the next thing I'm going to do after this now is to mark my crotch length. And how to take your crotch length is like so: you sit on a flat surface and then measure from your waist to the bottom of that flat surface. So that's how to take your crotch length. So that is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and mark this on my pattern paper, and I'll subtract 2 inches from that because 2 inches of my waistband. So what I have for my crotch length is 10 inches. So if I subtract 2 inches, that will give me 8 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark that 8 inches at another point, so I end up with a straight line. I'm just going to label that my waist here, my hip, and then right here is my crotch. So next what I'm going to do is mark our thigh length, and it's usually about 2.5 to 3 inches from your crotch, but I'll be marking 3 inches for mine. So I'll just go ahead and mark 3 inches at another point, so I end up with a straight line. So I'll label that my thigh, and then I'll go ahead and mark my knee measurements from my waist now to my knee. I make sure I subtract 2 inches from that because we are adding 2 inches, band to this. So I'm going to mark that point now. It's usually 21. So if I subtract 2 inches from that, I have 19. So I've joined the point. I'll come to my ankle. So my waist to my ankle, I subtract 2 inches from that as well. So it's supposed to be 39. So 39 minus 2, that is giving me what? 37. So I mark from my waist to that point, mark 37 inches. Remember, I've subtracted 2 inches of my band from all these vertical measurements that I am measuring. And go ahead and join the point. So I'll be labeling this part my ankle, and then I'll come right up here and label this part my knee. I forgot to do that. So I'm going to come to my hip now, and from this vertical line we'll be marking our hip circumference divided by 4. So I'll just go ahead and mark that like so, and then we'll be adding ½ an inch of ease to our hip measurement. So you can go ahead with 0.25 inches, you can go with ½ an inch. So I'll take the entire measurement at my hip area inclusive of the ease allowance, and then I'll transfer that measurement to my crotch area and also to my waist, and then join those 3 points together like so. So just join it like so. So what I'm going to do next now is take the entire measurement horizontally at my crotch area, and then I'm going to be dividing it by 4. So what we are going to do is use that to create our crotch curve. So that whatever I have, my crotch measurement like so divided by 4, I'm going to use it to create a crotch extension from that line. So I have 2.72 for that. I have 2.72 inches for that. So I'll place it like so from that line, and then just, create our crotch extension like so. The next thing I'm going to do now to have like a perfect curve is to come to this point right here. I'll be marking 1.5 inches diagonally. If you want it to be very accurate, mark 1.5 inches at a 45-degree angle So I've marked that point like so. And then what I'm going to do is use dash lines to connect it to that point and then all the way to this line right here. And we have our crotch curve, and then I'll just go ahead and, smoothing out the line like so. And this is it, guys, for my front trouser pattern crotch curve. So I'm going to go ahead and come to my waist now. We'll be taking our waist circumference divided by 4, and we'll be taking that measurement from this line right here, from this vertical line, not from the one at the back, from this one I'm pointing at. So I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'm going to go ahead and mark that right there. And then I'll be adding 1 inch dart allowance. So I'll go ahead and mark that 1 inch dart allowance right here. So I'll be marking 0.25 inch of ease for my waist. But if you remember, for my hip, it was 0.5 inch of ease I added. So 0.25 inch of ease for my waist. And then I go ahead and connect my hip all the way to my waist like so. So next I'm going to do now is come to my crotch area. Take the entire length, including the crotch line extension. So whatever I have there, guys, I'm going to divide that into 2. So I just fold my tape rule like so into 2 to get the midpoint. And then I'll place it right back on that crotch line and then mark the midpoint on my crotch line. So in order to mark the midpoint for other places, what I'm going to do is place the folded edge of the tape rule on this line right here. So I'll come to my waist, place the folded edge of the tape rule at this line. As you can see, this is what I have. Then I'll go ahead and mark the point there. I'll come to my hip, do the same thing. So this is to get the midpoint of our front trouser pattern. I'll come to my thigh. From that line, do the same thing. Come to my knee, place the midpoint at this line right here, mark it, come to my ankle, and I'll do the same thing right there. So that's how to get the midpoint or the midline of your trouser pattern. And then as you can see, the points are joining together like so. If you miss it out, you will not get a straight point. You will not get a straight midline. So I'm going to come to my waist now to take my dart. I'll be taking my dart of 1 inch, half an inch on both sides. And my dart length is supposed to be 6.5 inches, but because we are removing 2 inches of band, that would make it come to 4.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark 4.5 inches on this line, and then I'll join the points to form my darts. So guys, after this now, I'll be taking my thigh, knee, and ankle measurements. So my thigh circumference is 24.5. So 24.5 divided by 2, that is 12.25. So the midpoint of 12.25, I placed it on that midline right there, and then I'll be marking both sides like so. So I'll just go ahead and mark it. And then I'll come to my knee. My knee circumference is 17.5. So 17.5 divided by 2, that is 8.75. So the midpoint of 8.75, I place it right here, and then I mark both sides. And then I come to my ankle. My ankle circumference is 12. 12 divided by 2, that's 6. So midpoint of 6 will be on that midline, and then I mark both sides. And then what I'm going to do is now connect all these markings I've done all together. So I'll be connecting from my crotch to my thigh, come here, from thigh to my knee, and then I'll connect from my knee all the way to my ankle. Don't mind me, I'm using 2 rulers for this so I could get it right. So once I'm done with this side now, I'm going to come to this side, use my hip curve now, connect my hip to my thigh like so, and then connect thigh to knee. So I'm using different curved rulers so I can actually get this part right. So after connecting, I'll go ahead and fine tune this point like so. And that is it, guys, for our trouser pattern. So the next I'm going to do is add my seam allowances all around. I'll be adding seam allowances of 0.5 inch. I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what our front trouser pattern looks like. So I didn't add any hemming allowance at the bottom. What you don't want to do is just go straight down like so. You don't want to do that. So I'll explain what you need to do. So at my ankle line right here, the bottom of my trouser, I'll just fold my pattern paper along that line like so. So I can see all the markings underneath this pattern. So you can go ahead and use a pen to trace this out. But since I have a tracing wheel, I'll just use my tracing wheel to trace along the seam allowance line that I can see, not the main front pattern measurement, along the seam allowance line. So I'll do this on both sides. Whatever I have, I'll just go ahead and flesh this out so you guys can see the lines like so. And as you can see, the lines are not straight. They are not following the pattern of the trouser. They are kind of like slanted. This is such that by the time you are hemming, there will be enough fabric for you to use to hem your pattern, to hem your garment, sorry. So I'll be going with a 2-inch hemming allowance from that ankle line. So I've marked it on both sides, and then I'll go ahead and join them together. What I did was inclusive of, seam allowance on the side. So I'll just go ahead and, mark that out so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So guys, once we're done with this, we'll go ahead and create our fly on our pattern. And our trouser fly is going to be cut together with the front trouser pattern. So I'll be taking my trouser fly width from our main trouser measurements. That's the red line right there. And I'll be going with 1.75 inches for my trouser fly width. You can go with 1.5 inches. So I'll mark 1.75 inches right there. Come at my hip area. So from that line, just, mark 1.75 inches. I'll just mark that point, and then I'll just draw a straight line to connect the points together like so. And then I'll join the points vertically as well and go ahead to close up this area. So guys, we have this pointed parts right here on our trouser fly area. So what I want to do is curve this out such that when you cut this on fabric and you need to overlock your fly area or use a bias binding to, conceal the raw edges of your fly area, it is going to be so much easy for you to do. So this is what it looks like up close. I've gone ahead to curve this out like so. Basically, curve it out so that it is easy for you to overlock the raw edge of your fabric or, conceal it with a bias binding. So just go ahead and create that curve. It's a very, very slight curve. So this is how my pattern looks like once I cut it out. We are done with our front trouser pattern. I hope this part was very, very simple for you. And now we can move to the back. So in order to draft our back pattern, we'll need our front trouser pattern, the one we just created. So I've taped it on this fresh pattern paper underneath. I use this paper tape for that. It's kind of transparent, so you don't get to see that. So what I'm going to do is use my tracing wheel now to trace only my front pattern minus seam allowance. And I would not trace out the dart. So I will trace only my front pattern minus seam allowance. If you don't have a tracing wheel, you can go ahead and place your tracing paper on top of your pattern if it's transparent and use your pencil or marker pen to trace it out. So I'll just go ahead and trace out my patterns now. Remember, I said minus seam allowance minus my fly minus my dart. I'm tracing every other thing else. So I'll just go ahead and do that for this pattern. And then once I'm done, what I'm going to do is lift up this pattern. You guys will not be able to see the markings the tracing wheel has created. But what I'm going to do now is use dash lines to sort of like make those lines visible for you guys to see. So I'll just create dash lines all around the points that I've used my tracing wheel to mark. So essentially, I'm recreating my front pattern on this fresh pattern paper, just that it is not going to have the zipper fly, it is not going to have the dart, it is not going to have the seam allowance. So the only allowance it will have is the hemming allowance at the bottom because we need that. So once we are done with this, guys, what I'm going to do is to create my crotch extension for the back. So I'm going to be creating my crotch extension for the back, and I'll be marking 2 inches for that, and then I'll just go ahead and connect the points like so with a straight line. So this is my crotch extension for the back. So at this extension we just did, I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch. This will help us to create the crotch curve for our back trouser pattern. So what I'm going to do next is come to my waist area, the second half of my waist, close to this crotch line. I'm going to measure that. I have 4 inches. We are going to be dividing that into 2. That is 2 inches. So I'll mark that point. So what I'm going to do next now is come to my crotch line. Now the crotch extension we did for the front, only the front, I'll just measure that, and I have 2.72 inches if you remember. So I'll come to this point now that we've marked, and then I'll mark that 2.72 inches like so, and then I'll join the points. So we are basically extending our waist upwards for the back. And then I'll come to this point. For our front, we did a 1.5 inch diagonal mark right there at a 45-degree angle. But for the back pattern, we'll be doing 2 inches like so. So I'll just mark that point. And then what I'll do is from that 1/2 inch below the crotch line that we've done, I'll connect it to that point and then connect it all the way to this point at the top like so. So I just use a pencil so that I can be able to get it, and then I'll just flesh it out with my marker pen for you guys to see. So this is what I have. This is what our back crotch curve looks like. So once I'm done with this now, what I'm going to do is extend the waistline from these dashed lines. That's my front pattern. So after doing that, I'll take the entire measurement of my waistline for my front pattern. So what we're going to be doing is transferring that measurement. We're going to transfer that measurement that we have there from this point like so. From this point right here, we're going to be ensuring that that measurement rests on that line that we extended right here like so. So that will be our waist measurement for the back pattern, and I'll go ahead and connect the points. Please ignore this previous line right there. It was a mistake. So I'll just go ahead and, cross that out. So just ignore that, please. So once we have our waistline for the back pattern, the next thing I'm going to do is label this my crotch, label this my hip, come here, label this my waist, so we know what we're working with. So I'll be adding ease allowance of 1 inch at my thigh, my knee, and my ankle. So on both sides, I will add 1 inch ease allowance. So I'll come to my knee, do the same thing, add 1 inch ease allowance on both sides, come to my ankle, add 1 inch ease allowance on both sides. And also for the hemming allowance of my trouser, I'll need to add, ease allowance on both sides as well. And then I'll just go ahead and, join the points together. So I'll go ahead and connect my ankle to my knee. At some places, I needed to use curved rulers. Like here now, I use my hip curve to connect, from knee to thigh, thigh to hip, hip to waist like so. And then I'll come right here and connect my crotch to the 1 inch ease at my thigh area, and then just connect it to all the ease allowances I've, marked out on this pattern. So I'll just connect everything together like so. And then once I'm done, guys, we're going to be taking our dart at our back pattern. So from here to here, I have 4 inches. So what I'm going to do now is measure that, just to be sure. I have 4 inches. So I'll come right here now and mark that 4 inch right here. And then I'll mark my dart allowance of 1/2 inch on both sides. Now the middle line of my dart, I need to ensure that it is parallel to this crotch line like so. So I'll just go ahead and mark that down. And then our dart length is 4.5 inches, if you remember. So I'll come here and mark that 4.5 inches. And then what I'm going to do now is connect the points to form my darts. So this is how to create your darts for your back trouser pattern. So once we're done with this, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is add seam allowances all around my pattern of 1/2 inch. I've done that, excluding the hemming allowance. You're not adding any hemming allowance again at the bottom because we transferred that from the front pattern. I'll go ahead now and cut out my pattern, and this is what it looks like, guys. So we're practically done with our pattern. So here's the back, here is the front. What I'm going to do now is cut this out on muslin fabric because I want to test this pattern out. So I'll go ahead and cut it out on muslin fabric because I want to see the fit and see if it needs any adjusting. So I've gone ahead to cut it out on muslin. So what I'm going to do now is transfer my darts, and I'll be using office pins for that. So I'll use the pins to pin the dart points right here and the points at the top of the darts. So I'll just go ahead and pin those points. Ensure that it sticks out on the muslin on the other side. Turn my pattern like so, and where it sticks out, I'll just go ahead and join the point. So that's basically how to transfer that. You can go ahead and use your rulers to join the points to be precise, but this is like a test fabric, so I just free-handed the whole thing. So I'll just go ahead, transfer my dart for all the pattern pieces that I have cut out, and then I'll go ahead and sew the darts together. And then I've gone ahead to sew it. This is what it looks like. I've pressed it as well. And then what I'm going to do now is join the front pieces together, right sides touching. Now I'm going to be sewing the crotch area and stop right at this point because I'm not going to be attaching zip to this test fabric. So I'll sew only up to that point. Then I place the back pattern right sides touching, and then I'll sew the entire crotch area. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've gone ahead to do that. This is what I have for the back, and right here is what I have for the front, like I explained earlier. I'll place them on top of each other with right sides touching. I ensure that the notches match at the places that I have notched, particularly around my knee and around my thigh area. So I ensure that the notches match, and then I'll go ahead and sew by 1/2 inch seam allowance from the waist all the way down. I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. Ensure that my notches match, and then I sew from the waist all the way down. So guys, after sewing, this is what I have. What I'm going to do now is sew the crotch area. So I'm going to match the crotch of both the front and the back, and then I'll sew from the crotch all the way down. Ensure that the places that I have notched around my thigh and my knee matches. And then I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. So guys, after sewing these trouser pieces together, what I'm going to do now is test it to see the fit and then if it needs any adjustments. I've worn my test trouser and this is what it looks like, guys. I particularly like the fit around my crotch area. I like how that place sits. As you can see, I have a lot of excess fabric around my hip, around my thigh, and a little bit towards my knee. So I'll need to take allowances in at those points. At my waist area, I don't need to do anything because I think I like how that place sits on my body. So I'll just go ahead and take the allowances I need to take in for this trouser, and this is what it looks like, guys. So you can go ahead and take your allowances to how fitted or how loose you want your trouser to be. But whatever I'm taking in on this trouser, I will go ahead and make my corrections on my pattern that I have made. Very, very important, so I can be able to reuse, that pattern to make more trousers. So guys, I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. In my next video, I'll be showing you how to create a fitted waistband for your trouser such that the waist area will sit well on your body with no gaping around your waist, either at the back or at the sides. Thank you for watching, guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and bye guys.